Sridhar, good morning. Really good to connect. How are you?
Excellent, Martin. Good to connect with you as well.
I'm particularly excited about this just because of how many times we've tried to plan this session. So there's a lot of pent up excitement about this call. Well, look, for as always, for the benefit of the audience, would love for you to just give a bit of an introduction on your background, your work history, and what you're doing today.
Yes, happy to. So I work and lead the value engineering team at a company called Satinia. I've been there for 2.5 years. They are natively built on Salesforce and kind of own the cycle from opportunity to renewal. I've been in the value selling space for the last 15 or 16 years and have worked with various organizations like Oracle, Workday, Unit 4, and now Satinia. I'm an engineer by background. I've been a product manager in one of my previous lives. But yeah, for the last 15 years, like I said, value selling, value engineering, value is my passion.
Amazing. You could see it just in the way that you answer the question. I mean, you're kind of one of the OGs in this space, right? 15 years in this space probably gives you some good value muscle, especially at organizations that deliver or sell such complex solutions like Oracle. What is it about value consulting that gives you so much passion in itself? What is it about the role, the job, the challenge?
That's a great question, all right? And it stems from my experiences as a consultant. So I spent 3 years as a management consultant before value. And consulting teaches you a lot of skills that you can absolutely practically apply in value selling. It teaches you storytelling. It teaches you logical thinking. It teaches you analytical skills. You get that as your foundation. And then you add several skills on top of that, which are absolutely crucial in the value space. Number one, commercial acumen. You're there end of the day to win new business or enhance and expand existing business. Persuasion skills, super important. You're trying to convince multiple stakeholders as to why a choice is the right choice. And then ultimately, flexibility and creative skills, right? So important in the value world, especially in, we are in Q4, and Q4 is when creativity and flexibility absolutely shines.
Some might say it's business case season.
Absolutely. So those 6 skills, Martin, I mean, I've spent a lot of thought now. In fact, I've got a slide as well that summarizes it for all the new joiners. These 6 skills, some of this comes from consulting, and some of this is absolutely essential for value. And these 6 skills combined make me passionate about the field, the domain.
It is a very, very unique role in that aspect because you're right. You need a strong commercial acumen. You need to be able to storytell, which is oftentimes forgotten as part of the job spec when you put it out there. Just how important the art of persuasion with a good story, not just a story, but a story that maybe speaks to very different personas, right? Talk me a little bit through that, because I think a lot of people may not understand the nuances of how you storytell to a CFO versus a CTO, for instance.
Absolutely. Again, this is one of my areas of passion, right? I mean, I have this saying that someone once told me, content is king, context is King Kong, right? It's all about the context, right?
Yes.
And context is articulated through a story. And it has to be very persona specific, to your point. It has to address the what's in it for me. And the story has to be all around what are their objectives that they're trying to solve for. And this could be business objectives or even personal objectives that they have in mind, right? How do you then connect that with the pain points? What's stopping them from achieving those objectives? If we then were to address those pain points, what are the outcomes and benefits that you can stand to achieve? And ultimately, why is the solution the right choice for all of that? If you can connect the dots on these, from objectives to pain points to outcomes and benefits to capabilities, the magic happens. And the nuances are obviously, like you said, in the persona. Each story is very different if you're talking with a CFO or a COO or a CIO, for example.
And thinking about the persona on the other side, which is, imagine you partnering with a sales executive, right? How do you perceive the different roles in a sale between you and them? And how do you enable each other in the most effective way?
Again, something I'm really, really passionate about, Martin, which is, the salesperson ultimately is the orchestrator, right? He or she is the quarterback, the captain. They are responsible for the entire go-to-market motion. Value, I mean, I see us as a trusted advisor, end of the day. sales. And a trusted advisor, not just for a particular stage of the sales cycle, right? But a trusted advisor across the life cycle. What do I mean by that? Yes, Value's core job is in progressing and accelerating the deal, right? Creating business cases, creating demos that talk about outcomes, creating outside ins, self-service tools, all of that is important. But value can be a key component of demand gen.
Sure.
Value can be a key component of sales motion in order to keep customers happy, right? So the way I see it, trusted advisor, not just to sales, but also to the post-sales stakeholder of interest.
I'd love to get to the post sale in a moment. I also get the impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, that as a business value consultant in a sales motion with an opportunity, you build a slightly different relationship with the prospect than the salesperson. Because you're a trusted advisor almost on both sides, right? As a consultant, you can maybe have more permission to have deeper conversations where the buyer doesn't feel like they're being sold to, so to speak.
Absolutely. That happens when you engage early in the sales cycle, because you then provide a very objective, unbiased view. And you're almost helping the prospects inform them, educate them, making them aware of something that they can take internally to their board and evangelize internally.
And that's super important, right? Because oftentimes your champion may not ever have bought the category that you're selling them. And so it's almost like they need the support in helping them, kind of a buyer enablement, right? Helping them buy, but without feeling like they're being sold to. That seems like a very nuanced approach.
Oh, 100%, right? Because if you engage in early, you can do all the things you mentioned, Martin. If you get brought in late, it's almost like a self-serving device, right?
Yeah.
And bears see through it quite easily. And even though the intention is right in terms of helping them build their business case, it's all about timing.
And so is the ultimate product that BBCs deliver the business case in the pre-sale motion? Is that the final delivery, so to speak, deliverable?
I see one other asset that's really important after that, which is the business case is important, but ultimately it's the board presentation. It's important. And what do I mean by that? I see a
Slightly different
between the two. A board presentation, yes, it has the business case as a fundamental part of it, but it also has other elements. The current and future state, for example, from a solution standpoint. How are we going to deliver that value? What are we doing in terms of change management, in terms of adoption and credentials, right? What are some customer case studies? Who's been there, done that? All of that is part and parcel of a few slides, but real crisp, punchy, impactful board presentation, of which value is a very important piece, but surrounded by other pieces as well.
Just looking for a book that I have always next to me, but I can't seem to find it right now. John McMahon's famous book, right? The Qualified Sales Leader. He says at that very end state during buyer risk, where the buyer, the risk of signing is heightened, the two things that deliver the sale are the business case and the implementation plan. If you can deliver those, then you eliminate buyer risk. You remind them the security of why to buy. Makes total sense.
100%.
And how often are you involved in that board meeting, or is it always something that happens internally without any of the sales team involved? Is it a champion to their board?
So that's a really interesting one. So at Satinia, I joined and my remit was to kind of set up the function. So we could do things a certain way based on what we liked. I also have an absolutely wonderful sales leader for the international region who was a big proponent and advocate of value selling. And so board presentation standpoint, I'm almost always involved, be it in terms of defining the template for that board deck, and then individually within each sales cycle. Obviously, value will be a key part of it, so I will be involved, but I'll also make sure that the other pieces weave around value. The how is related to what are the outcomes that you can deploy, rather than features and functions. The current and future state is based on what's the value it can deliver in a graphical way. So the short answer to your question, Martin, almost always involved in that board presentation, working with the account executives.
I love the concept of the current and future state. What would be the components that you would show in the current and future state? Do you break them down by sections?
Yeah, so we call it the heaven and hell slide. right? It's hell today, and what could be nirvana or heaven in the future. And there are three key components of that. First off, painting that spaghetti diagram, right, of your current landscape.
The mess.
The absolute all the spider webs and plasters and sticky notes and all of that stuff. And then in the future, it's a much more streamlined depiction. The second is the KPIs in very slide, right? You'll have the diagram, you'll have the KPIs, and you'll have who cares the most about this, the personas.
Sorry, so the KPIs, personas?
The mess, so the diagram, the KPIs that will be impacted, or what are the current KPIs versus the future KPIs, and who are the personas
Right.
that it matters to today, and who are the personas that it matters to tomorrow.
Love it. I'm taking notes on this because I'm literally creating something for a very important meeting next week, and I think I'm going to apply this current and future state.
There you go.
Thank you. I'm getting value from this in many different ways. Brilliant. But equally, because we've seen this a lot, right? That in every sale, there's two sales. There's the one that we see, the one that we don't see, right? And we can have as much support influence to our champion, but at some point, they're going to have to go and advocate internally and sell this internally. And so these packs that you create are in collaboration with the champion, but really given to them do you then coach them on how to best deliver the message?
So I'll bring this up again. Whenever I have any conversation around value, I bring up this framework that I have abided with throughout my 15, 16 years in value, Martin, which is the 4E framework.
Okay.
Right? And if you think about the 4 E's, the first E, and I'll explain why I'm talking about this and how it answers your question. Bear with me though.
Yeah.
First is elevate. Value has to elevate the conversation to the senior stakeholders, right?
Yeah.
About outcomes, right? Rather than features and functions. Number 2, expand. Right? If you have the right listening skills, if you do proper discovery, you can expand your opportunity. Once would not have been thought about, suddenly becomes super relevant. Number 3, expedite the sales cycle by generating consensus amongst all the stakeholders involved. And number 4, to your point, evangelize. You have to evangelize value with your coach, with your champion, because guess what? We almost as much as we are a trusted vendor, trusted partner to prospects, there's a complete black box in that there are numerous conversations happening within the prospect that we're not privy to. And the coach and the champion has to be evangelizing our value messages internally. And so it's our job as value people to evangelize and educate and establish that comfort that this is the right messaging, this is what it means, and this is how you articulate it to your internal stakeholders.
I love it. Certini, lucky to have you. This is fantastic stuff, honestly. So there's a lot of methodologies that you've kind of built over the years. Where have you found throughout your career prior to Certinia where you've learned the most, or you've been most challenged in that role, and why?
I think I'll address the second one. It's a really interesting question. The second one, where have I been most challenged? It's almost always, and I've had the fortunate experience of going in early into companies to establish value, right? Be it Workday, be it Certinia, or be it even Unit 4. The challenge lies early on in educating people on the value of value. Why does it make sense to go towards a value selling approach versus a feature function selling approach? People are used to feature function selling, right?
Totally.
If you have to change their mindset, I always like this saying, dream big, but start small. And you start small by identifying the few sellers who just have outcome or value selling in their DNA. And you got to find them. And they are typically the people who care about outcomes, who care about what matters for the prospects rather than the story of the product or solution, right? Find them, work with them, build a collaborative business case that they can see you deliver. And guess what? There's nothing better to spread like wildfire than a seller telling other sellers that this is what works. Once you get that challenge,
that's magic. That's magic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we see that. And it's the greatest feeling in the world when you see it, just other sales reps recommending your solution or your methodology to others. And then it just grows because you know that it works. And we work in an environment where everybody's very limited attention, and sales reps are busy building pipeline, hitting their targets. Introducing a new sales tool is never easy. And so if it's something that is adopted and shared and grows, you know that there's value there. It's a wonderful feeling. I was on a panel the other day, and I remember they asked me about product market fit, and I said, I don't think there's any greater feeling than hitting product market fit if you're a builder of a product, because it means everything, right? It's value.
Absolutely.
You're creating value. At the end of the day, it's all about value, right? In any given environment or context.
Totally.
I do love your story about how important context is to everything that you're doing, the 4 E's in that approach. How do you really get this embedded into a sales team, especially when they're very accustomed maybe to selling features and demos? What are some of the techniques that you use to really change their hearts and minds?
So, number one, I would say is lay the foundation, right? And by that, I mean establish a really easy value framework, something that is digestible, something that's intuitive, something that's simple for people to understand, right?
Four
Here,
E's.
exactly. And how right? You start making it simple, right? You can add layers of complexity over time, but if you make it complex from the start, it will never fly. So get that foundation in place, get an easy value selling framework in place, maybe a couple of slides that everyone can adopt, and then it's enablement, enablement, enablement. Educate them, inform them in easy to use messages and relatable stories, and work with them. Work with them, take one case at a time. Again, going back to let's identify a few sellers, let's try it out with them. Let's have a proper business case approach defined with them. Get that wheel rolling. Once you get the wheel rolling, they'll start to want more.
Hmm.
That's when you introduce things like self-service tools. The sellers have already told the other sellers this works. Everyone wants to give it a go.
Totally.
Service becomes prominent, right? Everyone wants to try it. Now, once you try that, they want to use it early on in sales cycle. So you can then start point of views.
Baby
Start
steps.
trends. So baby steps but it all starts with foundation.
But I imagine I wouldn't say easier, but at least I imagine it's a little bit more easier for reps to understand today than maybe 10 years ago, because value selling has become a much more commonplace in many organizations. I think the concept of value selling, people generally at least understand notionally what it means, right? Albeit they'll need some guidance into the approach. Have you found it now, in your role at Certinia, you've been there for what, 2 years now? A little bit
Good.
less? 2.5.
2.5.
I would imagine when you introduced it, there was a greater understanding, at least of what it was, as opposed to maybe in your prior organizations or other places where you may have introduced it. Is that a fair assessment?
I think it is, but it's not earth shattering in terms of improvement. People still, I think it goes back to what people are comfortable with selling, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Even though everyone had this notional concept of value and why it matters, value still is a very abused word within any software company, right? Because it means different things to different people, right? And so, yes, it was slightly easier from an enablement standpoint because people got it conceptually, but it's still not smooth sailing in terms of, you just show something and they instantly get it. You have to walk them through it and you have to take them through a sales cycle.
Yeah. And especially so, and I speak from experience with another customer, especially when you're working with, it's very easy to introduce, I guess, the concept of value selling when you come in and the organization has maybe a 20% win rate, relatively low. But when, one company that we work with last year, they were at 50% within their segment, right? Over 50%. And so, you try to introduce a tool and reps are like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Why am I going to? But it's the difference, because that win rates fluctuate. They will go up, they will go down. They may have had a strong, H2 last year, but the market changes, it evolves. If reps aren't upskilled on selling on value, when things turn, which they ultimately do because everything is cyclical, they're not going to be tooled up enough to be able to address it. And everything worked out, and but that's where also enablement needs to come in and say, right, we need this as our organization, right?
I think that's a great point, Martin. I think win rates are super important. I think the other dimension that's super important as well is the duration of the sales cycle, because that's where we can play an impact as well. And he's one of my value gods. He's obviously moved on from value to much more leadership positions. I would love to get the opportunity to meet him someday, Doug May. And he has this wonderful saying, slow down to speed up. initially the sellers think, oh, introducing value, our win rates are already high, right? Introducing value is going to slow it down. So why bring it in? But in essence, you bring it in. Yes, you are going to slow down a certain extent, but you're going to speed up all the downstream activities.
And like you said earlier, it's very likely that the average ACV is going to increase because if you listen more, you may be able to solve more problems and therefore add more layers of product or deploy across more users or whichever model you have as a product.
Absolutely. I mean, the three key parameters of velocity: win rate, deal size, sales cycle duration, right? If you can impact all these three, your velocity dramatically improves.
Yeah, I love it. I could spend hours just listening to you, and I feel like this is a master's in value selling. Sridhar, thank you so much for this interview. It's been fantastic. I do have two final, relatively uncomfortable questions for you, as we always like to do. We talked a lot about value, and you've already mentioned some names, which is really lovely to hear. Who is the best value consultant or business value engineer that you've ever worked with? Could be a colleague, could be a mentor.
So I've got. Does it have to be one? Can I give two?
No, you can cheat. It can be several.
I think I've worked with like phenomenal value engineers, value consultants over time. One person strikes me from my time at Workday. His name is Evangelos. One of the skills I mentioned up front, logical thinking, and bringing structure to problem, breaking down problems into components, and then building up that story. Right. So almost breaking it down and then putting it back together in a very logical, structured way. He was simply fantastic at doing that prospect. And it just made it so easy for them because he broke it down to digest that information. And the second example I have is I have a person in my team. He's just 3 months old, but he brings a breath of fresh air, right?
Wow.
He's been in private equity, he's been in banking, he's been in consulting, and just the way he analyzes things. His name is Valmik. And so Evangelos and Valmik, for two different skills, they're just so super smooth and super skilled at what they do.
Lovely. Equally, who's the best sales rep, account exec you've ever worked with?
It's a really tough one. I worked with so many really good people. Again, can I give two?
For sure.
So David Horn at Workday, seller extraordinaire, right? He now leads sales teams, but just the way he's a true trusted advisor.
What were the characteristics that made him so good, so strong?
Listening. Both down to fundamentals, right? Just listen. You are yearning, you are eager to pitch your product and solution to the prospects, but he does not do that. He does not do that for a good amount of time until he knows exactly what the prospect wants, why they want it, and why we are relevant.
That's such a special skill.
So he does that all the time, and he works and orchestrates all the different functions in such a seamless way and make sure everyone's aligned all across the sales cycle. And there's a seller within Certinia as well, Paul Callahan, who does exactly the same. He has just such a good business sense. It's not just technology. It's ultimately a business problem we're trying to solve. And so both these sellers bring that unique business mindset to the table.
Amazing. I love it. I can see the enthusiasm and the excitement just when you talk about these people. It's contagious. Sridhar, thank you again so much. It's been lovely speaking with you.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and it's been really stimulating from my side as well.
Privilege. Thank you.
All right.